Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with a Witcher 3 build video, this time with the Piercing Cold mutation. It's one of my favourite mutations. It makes Ard have a chance to freeze and also have a chance to instantly kill any enemies that are knocked over, and it does massive damage to any enemies it doesn't instantly kill. We're using Ard Sweep and the other Ard skills right down until the bottom one, but the bottom one only does 200 damage per hit, which is nothing when the enemies have really high hit points, so isn't worth investing in. We've got Igni sign intensity because Igni is one of the best signs. And we've also got Magic Trap and the Erden skills because I'm using Entanglement on the armour. So Piercing Cold, you can see the damage there at the minute is about 3,422, but we'll add to that with Sign Intensity because the damage that Piercing Cold does relates to Sign Intensity. We've got Protective Coating and Acquired Tolerance and also the Synergy from the Alchemy tree. These are really important because Synergy increases the percentage that greater mutagens increase your sign intensity, and we take a bit less damage because of protective coating, and acquired tolerance lets us use decoctions. Griffin School Techniques is key for any signs build. It adds stamina regen and sign intensity, and we've got adrenaline burst and focus so that the adrenaline that we generate can be generated through signs and also increase your sign intensity. See the difference as we add the greater mutagens in, particularly these last two, and Ard's damage jumps up from 3,000 something to 5,000 something, which is a really big increase. We've got the Griffin armor and swords, and there's no enchantments from the rune right that are really good for these particular builds, so we're just putting Greater Bella's runestones on there, making Geralt look a bit daft because I don't like how the Griffin armor looks, so we might as well make him look a bit silly for these builds because he doesn't look good anyway. So we've got Entanglement on the armour, and the Witcher bonuses for using the Griffin Grandmaster set are among the best for those gears. So for having 3 pieces it lets you cast signs twice, and for having 6 pieces it greatly increases Erden's effectiveness, both the size of the Erden trap and gives you 100% extra sign intensity whilst you're stood in the trap, and increases your defense and various other things. Because we're not using heightened tolerance, I've put 6 of the vitality greater generating glyphs into the armour to offset the amount that we'll lose from toxicity. The Echidna Decoction and Ancient Lesson Decoction are brilliant if you have the correct signs that actually work with Ancient Lesson, because it's a little bit bugged, but Ard Sweep is one of the signs that does work, so we're going to use that here. The third decoction, you can use either the Arakas, or in this case I'm going for the Griffin one, which means the more hits I take the greater my damage resistance is, so we take less overall. Sign intensity is only 248%, but sign intensity only needs to be a certain height, certain amount before it actually starts being really effective anyway, especially from levels 40 through to about the middle of New Game Plus, when sign intensity doesn't matter how high it is, it'll just stop working anyway. Here you can see Igni is really fantastic. It's not necessarily the damage that Igni does, it's the fact that it applies burning if your sign intensity is high enough, which stops enemies attacking, and that's what does all the damage. And then you can see with Piercing Cold, Ard has massive range because of the upgrades. You can use Ard Sweep, and every time you use Ard Sweep it also increases your stamina regeneration. So the build really works well together because you've got a lot of different things going on. You can keep up a Magic Trap for Erden as well, and that'll keep zapping enemies, stopping archers, stopping arrows and all that kind of thing, whilst increasing your own sign intensity. This is a slight variation on the build, so instead of the focused and adrenaline burst yellow skills, using heightened tolerance and a fantastic skill, fast metabolism. Now fast metabolism means that your toxicity goes down incredibly quickly with 5 skill points in, and because we have heightened tolerance this time we don't need the vitality gems, so I've put the Ard sign intensity boost for the glyphs on the armour, because heightened tolerance is going to make it so that even though we're using 3 decoctions, any potions that we use aren't going to cause us any damage. So again, we've got the Echidna and the Ancient Lesson, and then the third one being the one of your choice. You can also use the Foglet Decoction, which increases sign intensity by a further 25%, but it only works in cloudy weather, and that's one of the things that they did actually fix, so you need to be careful when using that. I don't personally like it, I'd rather have more defense. So there you can see we apply a couple of potions. We've got the Full Moon Potion to increase the toxicity, and you can see just how fast the toxicity flies down with fast metabolism. We've already been able to put on the Petri Filter and the Tawny Owl, which are the 2 main potions that we'd use along with Swallow. So here you can see we've got the potions active. It's more or less the same thing in combat, it's still very effective. So we've got the Erden Trap. Every time we cast a sign, because it uses our stamina, it will cause us to get health regeneration from the Echidna Decoction, which is really useful. And every time you use Ard Sweep like that, it has massive range, it does the Piercing Cold, and also it will permanently increase your stamina regeneration because of the ancient lesson decoction for the rest of the fight. So you can see here we're using Igni and Erden and Ard all together, and in a moment you'll see the massive increase to your stamina regeneration that using Ard Sweep a few times with ancient lesson decoction provides, and that's a really good aspect of the build for the ones that are using decoctions. The next thing I'm going to show is again another slight variation on it, but this is a potions only variation and again can be very powerful. So delayed recovery with all 3 points means that as long as your toxicity, potion toxicity, is over 70% of the maximum level, the potions that you've got applied will never run out. So we swap refreshment for one of the abilities because we don't need we don't have the echidna decoction, so we're not getting the health regen from that, but every time we use a potion it'll regen instead. Fast metabolism is no good with this build because we want to keep the toxicity high, so instead we have endure pain, so that for all the times that the potion toxicity is higher than 70% whilst we take damage, we get a massive increase to vitality. This works really well with delayed recovery because swallow will never run out, because once we apply it and keep the toxicity up, it's going to mean that we're always getting really high vitality regeneration because of swallow, in addition to having the other key potions. So there I've applied the 3 main potions: Swallow, Petri Filter because it's a sign build to increase sign intensity, and Tawny Owl, and they go really well. But we can also put on the full moon decoction, and then you'll see later in battle whenever the toxicity drops low enough that we can apply another potion, you've just got to keep on top of it and keep reapplying the potions. So again, it's very similar, the actual combat and the build is unchanged, but it's extremely effective because you've got Igni burning things. In this case you can actually apply the blizzard potion as well, and again that'll never run out as long as you keep the toxicity up. The build's really effective because it keeps your stamina regen really high, you have high enough sign intensity to do damage, and it's just a lot of fun to mix up the signs and have a bit of free-flowing combat, especially if you don't keep going into the menus. Whilst you're holding parry with left trigger, you can change signs by using the sword switch buttons, so left and right on the D-pad, and you don't have to keep going into the menu, which I think makes the signs flow a little bit better when you're fighting. You can see how effective the build is. You can always keep Erden and Magic Trap up, you can always keep things burning with Igni, and you can always keep doing damage with Piercing Cold. The problem with signs builds in New Game Plus is that eventually the enemies have such massive sign resistance that even if you had a Euphoria build with 700 or 800 toxicity and sign intensity because of that, you still can't affect the enemies with a decent amount of the signs. So Erden stops slowing them down as much, and the magic trap does no damage whatsoever, and Ard just stops working completely. It'll stagger the enemies like you can see here, but it really won't do any damage, and Piercing Cold becomes useless. So if you're using this build it can be really fun, but when you get to the stage where the only sign that's working is Igni, you might as well switch to a hybrid build, which I'll be doing a video on. Thank you for watching, and please leave a like. Thank you.